Damir Ismagulov, known as Qazaq, which translated means the digger, is one of the best prospects in what is considered the most cutthroat division in the UFC. His pro record currently sits at 24-1 and he hasn't suffered a loss in over 7 years. His striking is phenomenal and counter-striking is incredibly fluid and intuitive. He has had great success in his career working in takedowns and even finding a submission victory. His takedown defense sits at a staunch 90%. As it sits, the digger looks like the total package and is a legitimate threat to the absolutely stacked lightweight division. As a child, he played football, was fond of horseback riding, and tried himself in track and field athletics. Subsequently, he moved to Orenburg for permanent residence, enrolling in the Institute of Physical Culture and Sports of the Orenburg State Pedagogical University. As a student, he was engaged in various types of martial arts, fulfilling the standards of a master of sports in universal combat and in army hand-to-hand combat. Since 2011, he has practiced MMA at the amateur level. In 2014, after winning the Russian Cup, he was awarded the title of Master of Sports in Mixed Martial Arts. Damir tasted success immediately in his amateur debut September 26, 2014, going 4-0 in a span of 48 hours to win the Russian MMA Union Cup 2014. Ismagulov made his professional debut less than 3 weeks later at OMMAF 2014, and TKO David Baksky at 2 minutes into the first round. The digger would not remain above ground long, as less than a year later his professional record would fall to 5-1 as he would suffer a decision loss to Ramazan Esenbayev at M1 Challenge 61. 2015 would prove to be Damir's worst year to date in MMA, as he would go on to suffer an amateur bout loss round 1 via rear naked choke by Magomed Mamov in the Russian MMA Union Cup 2015. Ismagulov took the defeats in stride, training harder than ever to close up the holes in his game. The digger would only take pro fights from then on. He went on an absolute warpath, winning his next 14 fights in a row in mostly Russian circuits like M1 Global. His victories were an even mix of decisions and knockouts and included 3 5-round title fights. Damir was showing how well-rounded he had become, how the countless hours of training was becoming a snowball that would crush anything in its path. At the end of 2018, UFC could not sit on the sidelines anymore, they had to sign the wrecking ball that is, Damir Ismagulov. In his UFC debut he would face Alex Gorges, who was undefeated in his amateur and pro career. Damir worked his jab and picked him apart from range while working in takedowns. He hit the undefeated hitman Gorges and won a unanimous decision. One thing was clear, UFC was not going to give Damir an easy path to the top rankings. Damir's next test would be against a submission specialist, large for the weight class, the 15-1 El Fenomeno, Joel Alvarez, who still boasts an 84% submission rate. Any questions about Damir's striking has been answered, Alvarez was here to break him on the mat. Damir started off the first round by finding his distance and then landing brutal right hooks on Alvarez, forcing him to respect Damir's striking. Round 2 and 3 was more of the same, with Damir working the jab to body and face, finding 1-2 combos and sharp overhand rights. The digger's fights typically touch the mat with him working in a takedown or two and trying to focus some ground and pound, but this fight never saw the mat and Damir outstruck El Fenomeno almost 2-1. The digger's next matchup would be Thiago Moises, who was 12-2 at the time and finding early success in the UFC. However, Damir would prove to be a freight train and landed a nasty knockdown round 1 against Moises. Another clear-cut, unanimous decision in the books for Ismagulov. Ismagulov's next opponent would be Rafael Alves, and Alves would come out of the gate like a madman, landing a vicious combination that would have ended most fighters' nights, but the digger would dig deep and survive in dark, bloody waters. Damir was able to survive the submission threat on the ground and reverse position. The power of Alves would soon fall victim to the technicality, pace, and wicked jab of Ismagulov, and Damir would take another unanimous decision. What happens when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force? The UFC wanted to know the answer to that question when they booked the Georgian Viking Guram Kutaledze against the Digger on UFC on ESPN Qatar vs Emmet. The two would go on to display combat capabilities that far surpassed any of the other ranked fighters on the card that night. Damir found early success with his jab and split Guram's face open early, but Guram was a warrior and possessed a level of physicality paired with technical striking that Damir had not seen the likes of. They traded brutal exchanges for 15 minutes, but the head-hunting of Damir would prove to be the difference. He would win his first split decision. Ismagulov's ceiling is difficult to determine from his current record alone. He's shown an abundance of skills in every phase. He's early in his career, and he already looks like one of the more educated strikers at the weight class. But the entropy of the sport, especially in a division this strong, can take a toll on even the very best prospects. This is doubled in the case of fighters like the Digger, who is a non-English speaking decision fighter, which leads to them running a gauntlet of nasty matchups until they inevitably fall at the hands of a bad one. As it currently sits, we are 24 hours away from 9th-ranked Arman Tsarukyan vs 12th-ranked Damir Ismagulov at UFC Fight Night 216. Will we see Damir step into the spotlight in the top 10 rankings, or will our new favorite upcoming Russian marauder fade into obscurity? The Digger is going to bury this motherfucker.